My expectations and thoughts about Sabrina Carpenter's new album. Let's talk about it. How y'all doing? Welcome to Let's Talk About It Music Reviews Season 11. How y'all doing? Welcome to the show. Guys, we got a good episode for you today. I can't believe, in 2025, guys, on my birthday, we're going to be talking about Sabrina Carpenter. I mean, god damn it. I didn't want that to happen, but it's happening. And, we'll definitely be there when the album drops, guys. But I wanted to give my expectations and thoughts because I did review. So, here's the lore, I guess you could say. We'll go over the lore real quick because, I always, have, years. I always have, like, a history of years with, talking about these artists. Sabrina Carpenter, I didn't review Short and Sweet. I covered a couple of tracks. And then I moved on to other things. But once the Short and Sweet Deluxe came out, I covered that around August last year. And so I talked about that Short and Sweet and Deluxe, etc. It was a whole thing. And then we talked about Post Malone right after. Guys, it's been a while since I've talked about Sabrina Carpenter. But I will say this. I think she is probably one of the better pop artists in this newer generation of pop music. I've reviewed a lot of pop music going on 5 years of doing this goddamn show. And, it is just crazy to think that, another album's already coming out. And this album's going to be called Man's Best Friend. I mean, this album has had some, already a lot of, pushback. There's been some, great anticipation on Twitter, etc. Been some negative thoughts on Twitter. And, I'll be real, guys. I don't listen to music for... I guess I don't listen to music for political reasons that much. There is some political, reasons for why people do not like this title. Saying, you can't, you're degrading yourself, in front of a man, etc., etc. And, hey, look, I'll be real, guys. That's definitely what's going on here. I mean, this cover implies everything. But if you've listened to Short and Sweet, Sabrina Carpenter is all about this type of music. People want to pretend. I don't know why people keep pretending like, this is like a big old joke. This is a big old joke from Sabrina Carpenter. I mean, even on her announcing this album or even, going back and, talking about her anniversary of Short and Sweet, she's still talking about horny shit. You think the horny shit's gonna go away. Guys, I've listened to so much goddamn music, and so much newer music too. I think people forget that a lot of music that people have grown up with back then is some of the most dirtiest shit that I've heard, in my life. And I'm sure you've heard it too. I'm sure some of y'all, have been, in the back of the car on your mom's radio, etc., and you hear, her CD, or you hear her or you hear her playlist, and you hear a song that, it might be popular back in the day, but it's got a lot of, sexual undertones, etc. It's got a lot of this, a lot of that, a lot of, maybe mention of drugs, maybe mention of that. And even the country music, country music always loves talking about fucking women, always loves talking about drinking, etc. I mean, even the old country songs are talking about women, talking about drinking, I just feel, in my personal opinion, guys, if you're coming to music for a political undertone, if you're coming to music for political reasons, I just feel like you're going to get disappointed because you're going to realize that a lot of these artists are, in fact, are on that type of time. There's a reason why they always sing about it. And you're going to learn, too, that nobody fucking cares, So, I will be real, guys. There is some political undertones, but I think it's just people forcing political undertones. As a lot of people go and, oh, this shouldn't be the title. This shouldn't be the cover. But, there's albums that I've seen on Twitter that have had full pictures. I've seen an album cover, guys, a pop album cover. And thank God I never reviewed this album. Thank God I never did. But I saw a album cover with an X-ray photo of a vagina. And this album right here is getting all the praise, getting all this on Twitter. You know, people are like so excited for this album. And then you look back, and then people from Sabrina Carpenter's album, because it's got, you know, not even a whole figure of a man, just because there is, you know, like a half photo of a man, now it's suddenly a goddamn problem. Now suddenly, oh, wait. Yeah, we don't want to, you know, degradation. We don't want to, you know, we don't want to fall under that. You know, we don't want, you know, music to define that, etc. or whatever. And I'll go, wow. People are so goddamn spineless that they can't enjoy music. They're so spineless that if they see a man on an album cover, you know, they don't want to support it. And I think that's kind of crazy. So, those are my thoughts about the political undertones of this whole thing. So, if y'all want to know my thoughts about this Sabrina Carpenter, you know, degrading herself, or, you know, the sexual undertones, I'll just be real, guys. The sexual undertones have been there since the first album. So, I mean, what do you expect? You know, it's like guys, I've reviewed so much rap music. Rap music is one of the most popular genres of music of all time. You know, rap music is so goddamn popular. And you know what rap music always talks about all the goddamn time? Even people try to go, oh no, there's hip hop music, you know, there's Kendrick Lamar, there's, you know, Clips, there's, you know, these rappers, and they start naming all these rappers, and you go listen to these rappers' music, and, well, they're talking about the same shit, you know, just it's over a boom bap rappy, you know, we're talking about getting money, you know, we're talking about buying clothes, we're talking about fucking bitches, you know, they're just doing it under a boom bap type beat. So I look at, you know, at that genre of music, and I look at pop music. Well, pop music has always had sexual undertones, has always had, you know, the idea of sex, etc. So, I don't know why people are now all of a sudden pretending like this wasn't a thing. This has been a goddamn thing for years. You know, like, it's crazy. So that's the political undertones, you know, that's the retards that are, you know, always talking on Twitter. And, you know, I thank God, I thank the Lord that these people are just on Twitter talking like this, because, you know, the success of this album, etc., you're really going to see it, guys. You've already seen it with the first single, you know. This album's going to go goddamn crazy. So, man's best friend, but what are my expectations now and my thoughts about this album? You know, we talked about, you know, the discourse about this album, but this album's coming out in 2 days. Man's best friend, all the titles have been released for this. You know, we can go over the track list. You know, we start off with songs like Manchild, and I don't think I liked Manchild that much. You know, I feel like Manchild, the hook, in my opinion, wasn't the best, and I do feel like there was a little bit too much talking. I will say that. That's my thing about Manchild. You know, I hope there's more. I think there's going to be a lot more, and I think there's a reason why. Maybe there is a lot of talking with the, you know, because it's the track 1. So maybe if we're going to have track 2, track 3, track 4, hopefully there's not a lot of talking. But I did enjoy Manchild. I mean, I did enjoy the instrumental. I mean, the instrumental has been crazy. And I really hope this, like, production, I really like how Sabrina Carpenter's kind of going in this more, I would say this is kind of more kind of folk-like. Not really folk-like. Let me rephrase that. I like how she's going in this more acoustic kind of country, you know, pop sound. I think it's beautiful. I think if you can really, you know, have instrumental breaks, if you can really, you know, let the guitar actually have some personality, because it's so many times I've listened to pop music that just uses the same 5-second guitar loop throughout the whole entire pop song, and it just gets so annoying to listen to. So I really hope we get more of that production style. Hopefully we get some more R&B elements. You know, I love that Sabrina Carpenter, you know, went in with some R&B elements in her last album. I hope she can maybe expand on that, or maybe do even something better with that. I love those elements. You know, some of my favorite songs from that short and sweet album had those R&B elements that I really enjoyed, so I hope we get more of that. And, you know, it just makes the songs more addicting. If you got great background vocals, you know, harmonizing with each other, if you got these, you know, R&B undertones, you know, I'm going to be real, you know, it just gets stuck in your head. And I think if this is, you know, if this is the brand of Sabrina Carpenter, you know, which is, you know, some funniness, you know, some funny stuff, you know, some joking around, and also some horniness. You always got to have some horniness. And then, you know, of course, the album's always being a little bit short. You know, if we're going to, you know, keep this brand going on, even doing the 6-inch single or the 5-inch single, etc., I think, you know, if she can keep doing these, you know, keep expanding these R&B type elements, I just think, you know, the music can just get even better and better. Yeah. And that's another thing, too, guys. You know, people about this discourse, about this album being, you know, shouldn't be about, you know, about a man or whatever. Shouldn't, you know, be about this or whatever, you know. And this is why you should never. And this is why I made the mistake, you know, in 2024, guys, of, you know, trying to, you know, maybe, you know, look at Twitter's opinions and maybe, you know, take them to heart. And that's why you should never do that. You should never give in to, you know, the mob or these retards that are very spineless, that will, you know, praise one thing, but will, you know, destroy another thing, and then they'll praise the thing that's, you know, probably 10 times worse. I'll be real. I've seen albums, I've listened to pop albums that have way worse stuff than Sabrina Carpenter. I mean, at least she's trying to have fun with it. I mean, at least she's trying to make fun lyrics with it, you know? At least she's trying to do that. You know, there's so many pop artists that don't even want to put in the effort like that. So, it's just funny. So, yeah. Guys, I think my expectations, I really hope the production is even better. I really hope so. I think Short and Sweet had such great ideas, and I like how the deluxe expanded on those instrumental ideas. But I really hope Man's Best Friend even expands on that even more. Maybe we get more instrumental breaks. Maybe that country sound is even better. You know, I just hope we get even more. And that's what I'm hoping for. And I think we will get it. You know, Sabrina Carpenter, I will say, is one of the better pop artists out there that's doing it. So I think we will get that. Hopefully we get that. And yeah, guys, let me know, how do you feel about Sabrina Carpenter's new album, Man's Best Friend? You know, are you going to be checking it out when it comes out? We will be checking it out when it comes out. And guys, get ready for Friday night. Friday night, we got a lot of track reviews coming for this album. And we also got an album review going to be coming for this album too. So make sure, if you're on YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, wherever you get your podcast at, make sure you follow. Turn on notifications, guys. We're dropping new content every single day. And guys, how do y'all like this new format? How do y'all like the new, you know, more news segment of the Let's Talk About It Music Review show? I want to do more of this stuff. You know, I want to just talk to y'all. I just want to, you know, give my thoughts about stuff because, guys, I'm going to be real. There's so many people that are so afraid to just say music opinions. It's kind of crazy. You know, it's always, you got to have some, you know, political undertone, or you got to, you know, have some, you know, it's always got to be, you know, an agenda. The music's always got to be about a fucking agenda. You know, nobody wants to actually talk about the goddamn music. So, if y'all get ready. We got a lot of music reviews coming, especially my Pandora people. Make sure you follow. Yeah, guys, I will see y'all later. You have a good one. I will be back tomorrow. We'll be talking about Taylor Swift because, yes, Taylor Swift announced a goddamn album for October 3rd. So right after September, we're going to be covering Taylor Swift, which is fucking insane. So I'll be giving my thoughts, expectations about that, you know, coming soon. So make sure you look out for that, guys. I will see y'all later. You have a good one. Bye.